Good morning. I am going to assume that we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. Good morning. It's my Tuesday morning live. Welcome to my live broadcast on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. Today we're going to talk about vacations. We're going to talk about time away from work. We're going to talk about the value of not working. I'm not going to be doing my broadcast next Tuesday because I will be on vacation. So this is a fantastic opportunity to talk about that. I'm going to also just do a quick sound check here, make sure that we're seeing all the sound that we want to see. You know, one of the things that input level's looking good, especially when it's coming from the USB. Okay, so we are looking good. So one of the things that actually was fairly hard for me to get my mind around was the idea that time away from work is as valuable and in some ways even more valuable than work itself. We have a model for this that comes to us from our Judeo-Christian background. You know, the Bible has an idea of a Sabbath, a day of rest, and that's been practiced throughout society in a number of different ways. For some reason, it looks like I just lost my audio. So lost my video. No, it's back. All right, we had a temporary interruption. So the idea that there was a day that a day of rest was a critical part of the natural life cycle certainly has been part of our society for thousands of years. And if you want to dig into it, the Bible actually has an even larger cycle where every 7 years there is a year where the entire land is allowed to lay fallow, meaning it's not being worked. The idea that even the land needs to rest. And of course, that's one of the things that we've discovered certainly early in the 20th century. One of the problems in the Great Depression in the Dust Bowl was that farming had overworked the land. And the reason there was dust was because land was farmed inappropriately. The ground was not allowed to, they didn't use contour farming. They didn't follow the contours of the land. They just made straight lines. And what that resulted in was topsoil that was blown away. That also had to do with repetitive farming that took away a lot of the nutrients and other plant matter that held in the topsoil, creating an agricultural crisis that then contributed to significantly an economic crisis throughout the country. That was almost, that was about 80 years ago, in maybe 90, maybe not following my math here, maybe 90 years ago in the 1930s. But it just gives an idea that rest is a critical part of the natural world. And so when we talk about vacation, when we talk about stepping away from our work, we can do that on the micro scale where what are our terms about our work? Do we work 14-hour days, 16-hour days, or do we have a reasonable 8 to 10-hour day? Reasonable because we need that downtime to rest, to recharge, to be energized, to be able to be focused and at our best when we come back to work. So that's on a daily basis. On a weekly basis, are we running our lives breakneck speed so that our weekends, while they're away from work, may be as heavily booked and stressful as our weeks? You know, just a small anecdote. I have three sons. They're not young, they're grown men now. But when they were young, we had them very involved in a number of different sports. They were playing soccer, they were playing basketball, and they were playing baseball. And these were 3-season sports that essentially carried us through the entire year. And so we would go from baseball season, I think, to basketball season, then into soccer season, then right back into baseball season. I don't remember the order, but the point was there was no break. And we finally said to them, you need to choose two. We don't care what two, but we're not going to do this where every single Sunday for the entire year, we are taking you to some kind of baseball or soccer or basketball game. And, during the week for the entire year, we're taking you to practice once or twice a week. We just could not sustain that level of energy. So we recognize the need for some kind of cyclical rest. So when we go on vacation, we're creating that opportunity for focused rest and relaxation. Now, what happens during this downtime? I also want to talk about that I do observe fairly rigorously a Shabbat, a Sabbath, a 25-hour period from sundown Friday night to about an hour after sundown Saturday night, when I don't do the typical things I do for work. I don't use the computer. I don't answer my cell phone. I don't even turn on a light. I don't cook food. All food that we're going to eat during that 25-hour period has to be cooked beforehand. It can be rewarmed on a heating tray or in an oven that has already been turned on before the beginning of Shabbat, of the Sabbath day. But after that, we try and change nothing in our physical world. And that allows us to just exist, to just be in our physical world. And one of the paradoxes of what happens on Shabbat is we get bored. Now, I want to be very clear. It's a very different thing for a grown man to get bored than for a child to get bored. And boredom, I think, for a child, particularly in a structure that he or she did not choose, can be very challenging. And I think certainly when I look at how my children now relate to Shabbat, the day of rest, they have a very dynamic relationship with it on at different times in their lives and at different periods in their lives. But that was I'm going off on a tangent, but the idea is the entire intention for the way my wife and I raised them was for them to be able to make their own choices. We were going to live a certain structure, and then if that appealed to them, if that seemed to have value for them, they would continue it. If not, they would have to find their own structure for themselves. And that's what they're doing. So to get back to the idea of feeling bored, of wondering what else is there to do. Do I want to read more? Do I want to take a walk? Do I want to work on a jigsaw puzzle or some activity? Building Legos is a lot of what I do on Shabbat. The idea is that we can't create anything that's permanent. So the nice thing about Legos is you can take them apart, so you're not creating a permanent structure. But there's other things that you're not involved in. You don't have to cut anything. It's not like you're hammering nails or screwing or any of these activities that connect to work. That's a different tangent. We're not going to go there. It's very complicated and long about how work is defined on the Sabbath, at least in terms of a Jewish interpretation of it, of an Orthodox Jewish interpretation of it. I'm digressing. What I want to come back to is the idea that even the sense of boredom is itself a valuable experience, that it's meaningful. And I think that just to look at our society where there are so many opportunities for entertainment, if we have a down moment, even, you'll see people at a stoplight, they'll pick up their phone and they'll be scrolling through it. They're waiting in line at the checkout stand. How many families have their phones with them at dinner, and so there's no conversation, but everybody's on their phone. It's family time on the phone. Or we have these opportunities to be entertained and distracted at any moment. So boredom has been completely eliminated from our society if we so choose. And I think that's why it's so important to choose boredom, to find those opportunities when our minds, like the land, can lay fallow. Then when we can just be in rest and repose and relaxation and empty, if only to see what comes up, what bubbles up in our experience when we're in that mode. And I want to say something else, that the other thing that happens is, what perspective or what understanding do we get that we bring back to our work? One of the things that I learned to do in college is that if I was working on a project, I was writing a paper, if I was stuck on something, or even just exhausted or tired and not feeling like I had enthusiasm or innovative perspective or anything important to say in a paper, sometimes the best thing I could do would be to stop writing and take a walk or leave it off. Certainly if I managed my time effectively, and so it wasn't like, oh, this paper's due in 4 hours, I've got to keep cramming away at it. If I could really control my time, and for much of college I worked hard to do that, so that I had time to say, what, let me take a break, let me clear my head, think about, and when I come back to what I'm doing, I'm going to see it in a new way. And the really exciting thing that sometimes would happen is, particularly if my mind was completely distracted from the problem, it was almost what I called it was like it would percolate in my brain, like somewhere in my subconscious or in the back part of my brain. I don't understand the neurology of it. I certainly don't understand the psychology of it. But the problem would be existing, it would be worked on, it would be relevant to my mind. And all of a sudden, at a time sometimes when I least expected it, a solution would come out, a new idea would come out, a new argument or a new outline for a paper that I was writing would emerge, or a new idea to research or to look into would emerge. And sometimes I'd have no idea where that came from, but I knew somehow it was connected to the idea of leaving off from the work, of taking a rest, of taking a break, of stepping away from it. One last thing I want to say is that in 12-step recovery programs, we're told to find recreation and hobbies. Those of us who are struggling with a substance or are connected, in love with, or committed to, or the children of, or the brother of someone with a substance addiction, if we go to Al-Anon or we go to 8A, Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the things we're taught there is to find recreation and hobbies. And I don't even want to say taught. We're suggested. Everything in these programs is a suggestion. We need to find for ourselves what works to develop our own recovery. But one of the things that can work with some regularity is finding a recreation or a hobby that takes us away from the thing that we're obsessing about, the problem that we're facing, the sense of oppression if we are struggling with something. It provides us some amount of relief. And while that's that's certainly not boredom, and it's certainly not rest, it is a way to relax. It is a way to shift our focus. And so whether we're taking a vacation, whether we're taking a Shabbat, whether we're finding recreation and hobbies, things to devote our energy and attention on that are not directly related to sometimes some of the most important things in our lives, but that are separate from it, those actually give us a tremendous amount of meaning, and they make life worth living, and they give us the energy to come back to some of those things that are the harder things in our lives, so that we can not just endure them, but so that we can really move forward with them, so that we can even succeed and hit new levels of energy, of interpretation, of innovation, of activity, of perspective, of commitment. All of these things are leveraged, I think, when we take a break, when we relax, when we rest, when we go on vacation. So I will see you back on Facebook Live in 2 weeks and on YouTube Live in 2 weeks. I will not be broadcasting next Tuesday. I hope you have a great vacation and a great rest, relaxation, and I hope you find time to have a kind of Sabbath for yourself, whether it's a full day, doesn't matter which day even, or if it's just a partial day. I hope you take time to get bored and to rest and to discover the re-energizing, the innovation, the excitement that can come out of that afterwards. Thank you for watching.